folks? I'm Alex Pop, here with my currently untitled channel dedicated to all things Land Before Time. In these next two episodes, we'll be talking about the Land Before Time TV series. Like I said in my previous video, this show aired back in 2007, in between the releases of The Great Day of the Flyers and The Wisdom of Friends. I was almost 13 years old at the time, and I remember how I really wanted to see this show, but my homeschool connections classes kept me from it. It wasn't until I bought the DVDs back in 2012 that I really knew what I was in for. The series did hold a few surprises that I didn't see coming, such as reappearances from characters from earlier in the movie. Now, if you were to ask me what I thought of the TV show as a whole, I really wouldn't know how to answer that, because I can say that the voice acting's not bad, and the animation is pretty good for a TV cartoon nowadays, but other than that, I might just say, well, it's The Land Before Time, and you know how I feel about The Land Before Time, despite the times when it trips up. So, some of the episodes are good, some of them are not so good. So, instead of doing a full review on the TV series, or reviewing each episode individually, I'm going to give you guys my favorites and least favorites of the show. So, let's get started with the top 10 best Land Before Time episodes. Kicking off the list at number 10 is The Hermit of Black Rock. I was going to put the Forbidden Friendship on here because of Spike getting to see Tippy again, but watching it again, it's really not that great of an episode. The Hermit of Black Rock is the more believable of the two. We get a return from Guido in this one, who was one of the best things about the Great Day of the Flyers. A few miles outside of the Great Valley, he and Petrie get lost in Black Rock, where they meet Swooper, the blind flyer. It is enjoyable seeing them guide him over to the Great Valley, and I actually would like to see a cameo from this guy, maybe in a later movie. Up another notch to number 9 is the Big Longneck Test, in which Littlefoot's dad visits the Great Valley, as he said he would at the end of the Great Longneck Migration. He's there to give Littlefoot a set of tests to determine whether or not he's capable of leading a herd, because, evidently, leading his friends on all those other adventures they had doesn't count. At any rate, the parts during the test where Littlefoot has to think, it's actually not so obvious. It sort of had me guessing with him, and the solution to the final section of the test did actually surprise me. So, I did enjoy this episode. The subplot with Littlefoot's stepbrother Shorty leading the rest of the gang to the rock bridge wasn't really needed, but hey, they have to find some way to make sure every episode is 23 minutes. By the way, you may know that this is the only episode that was never released on DVD. If you haven't seen it yet, you can find it on Amazon.com for $1. At number 8 is March of the Sand Creepers, in which a huge flock of crabs flood the Great Valley after fleeing from an exploding volcano. This one makes the list because the bickering scenes with Sarah and the crab leader Scuttle, who talks like a pirate, just crack me up. Pile up me water greens. Yay high. I'll get you, yay high! There's nothing really that spectacular about this episode. It's just there for the laughs. Moving on to number 7, and that is The Mysterious Tooth Crisis. This is one of many episodes in the series where Chomper makes some self-discovery. One of his teeth falls out and he thinks that he's falling apart, but he learns that it's completely natural, which can be relatable. While I think most kids have their parents with them when they lose their first tooth, there are still other times where you think there's something wrong going on with you, but really it's all just part of life. There are some funny parts in this episode, and I love the moment when, while they're trying to find Ruby for help, Chomper loses his tooth in the swamp after holding on to it for a while. Chomper doesn't want to move from there, being attached, no pun intended, to every body part of his. Littlefoot, Ducky, and Petrie are understanding of him, and Petrie says he'll stay with Chomper while they go to get Ruby. Very great moment right there. And that places it at the number 7 spot on the countdown. At number 6 is The Lonely Journey. This one's good because it evokes a rather uncertain future for Chomper. In this episode, we really see what it's like for Chomper being the odd one out among the residents of the Great Valley. So Chomper ventures out into the mysterious beyond to try and communicate with other sharp teeth and try and make them more like him, but with unsuccessful results. The rest of the gang continue to accept him, but it still makes you think what may be to come for Chomper. Could he possibly stay in the valley all his life? It's hard to say, but I hope the series doesn't end before we find out. Coming in at number 5 is the Brave Longneck Scheme. After 11 years, at least to us in the audience, the promise made at the end of Journey Through the Mist is finally fulfilled in this episode. Allie returns to the Great Valley. It was about time for her to get more screen time. However, she's not quite the same as we remember her. She has a new friend named Rhett who has convinced her that he's saved his herd multiple times from sharp teeth. And she believes him? It really seems out of character for Allie to be gullible. However, I think I may have a way that I can retcon that. I'll let you know in a future episode. I also didn't like her replacement voice actress. Her voice in Journey Through the Mist was Juliana Hanson, who was 13 years old at the time. She added a lot of softness and femininity to the character. Here, her voice is more scratchy. So now that I've gotten the negative out of the way, I will say that when Sarah devises a plan to use Chomper to scare Rhett, it is fun seeing them rehearse the scheme. And I did like the realism of how their acting skills improve as they went. Like, their delivery starts off wooden, but it gets more involved, and Petrie starts flying instead of running. The songs are enjoyable too. I did like the way that they reused the song Friends for Dinner from the Mysterious Island. I also thought it was cool seeing Allie meet Chomper for the first time. And to be fair, there were also the moments when Allie starts to feel bad about what she said to Littlefoot and Sarah, even before Sarah's plan is executed. That did feel like her. So, at least Allie's character wasn't bungled completely. Yeah, I know I'm not alone in having wanted to see another movie with her, but at the end of the day, I was able to say, better than nothing. Well, I think I've gone on long enough about that episode. At number 4 is the Star Day celebration, in which Ruby is officially a member of the gang, or at least it's where it feels like she's really a member of the gang. This meant a good deal to me, as it made me think of how my friends in high school invited me into the youth group that I felt I'd been missing out on for years. The Star Day celebration does establish the reason why Ruby is in the Great Valley with Chomper, so it is one of the most important episodes in the show as well. Up another notch to number 3 is the Spooky Nighttime Adventure, in which Mr. Thicknose takes the kids on a hunt for the mysterious spooky creature known as the Hidden Runner, who eats dinosaurs while they're asleep and supposedly turns invisible. And it's not just like, oh, it's not real. See, there's nothing to be afraid of. What they find to be the truth about Hidden Runner is actually a little creative. The music is creepy at times, and there are some pretty funny lines in there too. Seeing Hidden Runner is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But what if Hidden Runner eat us? Then it'll definitely be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Moving on to number 2, and that is the Missing Fastwater Adventure. Another self-discovery lesson for Chomper. Here he learns the advantages to having such minuscule arms as he does, which is actually very clever considering how it's believed that a T-Rex had no use for its little arms. And Mo, the fun-loving Ophthalmosaurus from Journey to Big Water, makes a reappearance in this episode, so that's definitely a plus. So, Missing Fastwater Adventure, what can I say? I love it. And the number 1 episode of the Land Before Time TV series is The Lone Dinosaur Returns. Living up to its title, Doc returns to the Great Valley in this one. Having no family of his own, he wants to introduce Littlefoot to his traveling partner, Dara. And I think it's cool that Doc found a mate even at his age. But what makes this my favorite episode is when Doc learns about Chomper and tells Littlefoot that there's no use in being friends with a Sharptooth, as he's just going to have to fight him one day. Chomper then gets defensive and boldly proclaims that he will never be that kind of shark tooth. Everyone else backs him up on this, which I find interesting because we know from the mysterious island that they used to have their doubts. I also have to add that they do subtly add locations in the Great Valley that we've seen before in the movies. At one point in The Lone Dinosaur Returns, we see the rock slide that was piled up on the tiny Longneck's cavern. If you look closely at the shape and size, it really is the same one. So that's why The Lone Dinosaur Returns tops the list as the best of the Land Before Time TV series. But that's just me. Let me know what some of your favorites of the show are, and even make a video response if you want. And stay tuned for my next video, in which I'll be counting down my least favorite episodes. But you may not want to watch if you don't like hearing anything negative about The Land Before Time. Of course, in that case, you probably stopped watching my show already. I know, I'm a critic. Critics suck, don't we? So that's a wrap. This is the currently untitled Land Before Time channel, and I'm your host, Alex Pop. Catch you later.